Imagine starting with almost nothing, a cramped alleyway in a walled ghetto, a small coin dealing shop, and 5 sons. Now imagine that within a single century, your family's name would be whispered in the courts of kings, feared on the floors of stock exchanges, and invoked whenever the fate of empires hung in the balance. This is not a fairy tale. This is the story of the Rothschilds and how one family transformed the very architecture of money itself.
The story begins in Frankfurt, Germany, in the mid-1700s. Mayer Amschel was born in 1744 in the Judengasse, literally the Jews' lane, a single, narrow street where Frankfurt's entire Jewish population was forced to live locked behind gates every night. Jews were barred from most professions, forbidden to own land, and subjected to special taxes simply for leaving the ghetto.
Mayer worked as a cloth trader and money changer, later apprenticing at a banking house in Hanover. He developed a keen eye for rare coins and antique currency, a niche, patient skill that would open doors most men could never enter. When he returned to Frankfurt and took over his father's business, he changed the family name from Bauer to Rothschild, meaning red shield, after the red hexagram sign that had once marked their ancestral home. A small detail, an enormous legacy. Mayer's genius was not just in finance, it was in relationships. He cultivated a friendship with Wilhelm IX, the Landgrave of Hesse-Kassel, one of the wealthiest princes in Europe. Wilhelm had grown rich renting out his soldiers, the Hessians, to foreign powers. He needed someone he could trust to manage that wealth discreetly. Mayer became that person. He handled Wilhelm's loans, managed his investments, and in doing so, gained something far more valuable than money: access, legitimacy, and the credibility of royal patronage. By the time Mayer Amschel Rothschild died in 1812, he had built a fortune, but more importantly, he had built a system. 5 sons, 5 cities, one unbreakable network. On his deathbed, Mayer issued a directive that would shape European history. His sons were to stay united, always do business together, and never let outsiders into the family's financial dealings. He then positioned each son in a strategic capital. Amschel stayed in Frankfurt. Solomon went to Vienna. Nathan, the most brilliant financier of them all, was sent to London. Kalman went to Naples, and Jacob, who renamed himself James, settled in Paris. This was not merely a business expansion. It was the creation of the world's first multinational banking network, a private intelligence and financial system that could move money, information, and credit across borders faster than any government could. In an era when news still traveled by horse, the Rothschilds had their own couriers. When markets moved, they often moved first. When governments needed money, the Rothschilds decided whether to lend it. No moment better illustrates the Rothschild advantage than the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. While the British government waited anxiously to learn whether Wellington had defeated Napoleon, Nathan Rothschild already knew. His network of couriers had delivered the news a full day before the official dispatch reached London. What he did with that information is still debated. Legend says he sold bonds first, creating panic, then bought them back at rock-bottom prices when the market crashed. The truth is probably less dramatic, but still remarkable. Nathan used his early knowledge to navigate the markets with precision while others were flying blind. When news of Wellington's victory finally broke, the Rothschilds had already positioned themselves for the surge. In a single day, they multiplied their fortune many times over. It was the moment the family became untouchable. Through the 19th century, the Rothschilds became the lenders of choice for governments that needed to wage wars and fund empires. They financed Britain's war effort against Napoleon. They lent to Austria, Prussia, and Russia. When Britain needed to purchase control of the Suez Canal in 1875 and Parliament was not even in session, Prime Minister Disraeli personally approached Nathan's son Lionel. Within 24 hours, £4 million was arranged. No committee, no delay, just a handshake and the word of a Rothschild. They also financed the railways that stitched modern Europe together. Lines across France, Austria, and beyond. They bankrolled the diamond mines of Cecil Rhodes and helped stabilize the gold standard. At the height of their power, the Rothschilds were estimated to control wealth equivalent to hundreds of billions in today's money. By some accounts, the largest private fortune in modern history.
Wealth on this scale came with a sense of obligation, or at least the appearance of one. The Rothschilds became major patrons of the arts, science, and social welfare. They funded hospitals, schools, and synagogues across Europe. Lionel de Rothschild spent 11 years fighting to be seated in the British Parliament, not just for himself,
but for the right of Jewish men to serve without swearing a Christian oath. When he finally took his seat in 1858, it was a milestone for religious equality in Britain. They were not merely bankers. They saw themselves and were often seen as representatives of what Jewish achievement could look like in a world designed to limit it.
The 20th century tested the family in ways Mayer Amschel could never have imagined. The rise of Nazi Germany devastated Rothschild holdings across Europe. Their properties were seized, their businesses dismantled, and family members were forced to flee. Many branches never fully recovered. The era of private banking dynasties controlling sovereign debt was giving way to central banks, regulatory frameworks, and globalized capital markets. The age of the Rothschild as financial superpower quietly came to a close. And yet, they endure. Rothschild & Company remains one of the world's premier advisory banks, guiding mergers and acquisitions, advising governments, operating quietly at the center of global finance. The family still collects wine, art, and racehorses. They still move in the rooms where decisions are made. What Mayer Amschel Rothschild built from a cramped ghetto alley through intelligence, discipline, family loyalty, and an almost supernatural sense of timing